Welcome everybody. Happy Comic-Con. So I'm going to start, we're going to dive right in and introduce these guys. So this is Hatke. He is the, hold their applause for you. He's the author and illustrator of the Zeta and the Space Probe trilogy, several picture books, and the graphic novels Little Robot, Mighty Jack, and Mighty Jack, among others. He lives and works in the Shenandoah Valley with his wife and their boisterous pack of daughters. We've got Max, I see over here, Max Brallier. He's the author of more than 30 books and games, including the Last Kids on Earth series. He is the creator and writer of Galactic Hot Dogs and writes for licensed properties including Adventure Time, Regular Show, and Uncle Grandpa. Max lives just outside of New York City with his wife and daughter. Next we've got Soman Chainani. He is the author of the School for Good and Evil series, which has been translated into 27 languages across 6 continents and will soon be a film. He's also worked as a screenwriter and director, and his films have played at more than 150 film festivals around the world. He's a New York City dweller as well. Next is Aldridge. He's an illustrator and author who was raised in a very small town in Utah. Growing up, Ethan's favorite things to draw were monsters and whatever dinosaur took his fancy that week. He says he now does more or less the same thing for a living. He lives in New York with his husband Matthew and some kind of small wolf. And last, Judd Winick. He writes and draws comic strips and graphic novels, as well as writing animated cartoons for TV and superhero comics that include Batman, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, and Star Wars. He's currently hard at work on his series High Low, and you might recognize him from his time on the real old San Francisco. So welcome. It's a real pleasure to be here today, and I'm here for sure in service to these guys, but my publisher and publicists who are here would be very angry at me if I didn't mention that I'm an author as well of the Muppets Meet the Classics series, which is an irreverent mashup. It's a mashup of the Muppets and classic literature, and the next book in the series, which is Grimm's Fairy Tales, comes out on Tuesday. We'll go check it out. Okay, shameless self-promotion out of the way. I thought we'd start with some sort of non-scientific polling. Who out here is a writer? Aspiring writer? Okay, great. And the rest of you are readers? Writers and readers. Okay, great. Librarians, thank you.
Thank you for your service.
And then who's got the first time Comic-Con? Anybody here for the first time? Welcome. And everybody else veterans? Great. And one last question. We're all totally clear that the Devil's Triangle is not a drinking game, right?
So now we're all sad.
Crucial. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit, and then we're going to do a Q&A, so you guys think of things you want to ask these guys, or anything that comes up that you want elaboration on, and we'll do that at the end of this. And we'll also be doing a book signing, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. After this, we're going to book signing.
I do not know the location.
I think it's right there. Right there?
Right up there.
To the left, that's what we'll do.
So you can purchase books, you can have them sign your books, you can shake hands. It's going to be amazing. So as you probably know, since you're here, there's a discussion title for this, which is Come At Me, Why Big Problems Lead to Better Characters. So I figured as a jumping off point, we parse that idea and focus in on the big problems and speak to these guys about what problems are worthy of being called big. Does it always have to be life and death? And how do you keep these kinds of stakes fresh? Anybody want to jump in?
No, I think we're all stumped. Can we talk about other stuff? Let's talk about Star Wars. Should we do that?
Yeah, anything you want.
Go ahead, sir. You got one there. You just let it in.
I was just going to ask how many of us, do we all agree with that premise?
For the big problems and better characters?
The big problems lead to better characters.
I don't know, because I feel like I've written, 3,500 pages in my series now that came from the smallest possible problem.
Yeah, and I was wondering if, like, maybe, like if you think about the characters, I don't know, I don't know. What I was thinking, like, if your main goal, when I think about storytelling, one of my main goals is just to make people love the characters, and then any problem that reveals more about who they are is a good problem. It doesn't have to be, like, you don't have to have the city crashing down. If you love the character, having them have trouble with their mom is just going to be just as easier, right? Or leave you just as invested.
I think for me, it was this question of, I remember in middle school, it sort of haunted me all the way to being an adult, was the question of why in middle school you would have two guys that were best friends and two girls that were best friends, and they would be inseparable. And they'd never be able to hang out with without each other. They'd go to the bathroom together, they'd go to every party together, everyone knew them by one name. And the moment, there would come a time in 6th or 7th grade, usually 7th grade, where someone of the opposite sex would come between them somehow, and it would split them up. One of them would have a crush on a girl or a guy or something, it would split them up, and they could never come back together the same way. And it was sort of that pivotal moment of the sort of like destruction of this friendship that had been around for a very long time. And I felt like I wanted to understand why the friendship never could be reconstituted the same way. And it was the smallest possible problem. And really, I've spent the last 5 books of the series trying to explore that and figure out why you can't fix the friendship once puberty interferes with it.
You find out when you tell me.
Still growing.
Yeah, but within the tiny problem, you've created a huge problem. The world they live in is a huge problem. I mean, I think that's what we do. Are we calling a genre this week? What we do, we just be like the catch-all for science fiction, fantasy, and things that aren't real. Yeah, we'll call it genre this week. When you do this, I think that's what's the most fun and interesting part, is that you're creating kind of a fantastical world, an absurd world, an impossible one, and it's huge. And then you're giving them the tiny problem within it while they're dealing with the huge. And it's it's like I'm dealing with a crush, or the fact that I don't think anybody likes me, and the world is ended. But I still worry that people don't really like me within the context of the world is ended. And that sort of coupled with, I do, Stephen King has often said, plots for suckers. Whatever the big story is, forget that, concentrate on your characters. But I think once you have your characters and you know who they are, then you can get as grand as possible.
Yeah, I think like we were talking about, as long as you are able to write compelling characters that people care about, just the most basic mundane stuff, if it's a big deal to the characters, it will seem like a big deal to the readers. And so the actual scale of the problem tends to be sort of irrelevant.
So my favorite Spider-Man comic, just all of this leads right to this. When I think I found this, I think it was one of my first Spider-Man comics, when I was maybe 10 or 11. And Dr. Doom had attacked, and Spider-Man's feeling really outclassed. But the main problem, the interesting problem that he had is that he had eaten a bunch of Aunt May's chili, and was really bloated, and it was just I've got to get through this and get to the bathroom. I've got to. It's my favorite Spider-Man.
I remember when that Halle Berry Catwoman came out, and Sharon Stone, I think, was the villain, and her sort of thing was that she wanted to create a face cream that would turn everybody to stone. Oh yeah, do you remember this? That was an actual plot.
It's a stunningly terrible movie. It's we're talking about the Halle Berry Catwoman. Yeah. So if you've seen it, you know. If you haven't seen it, if you're trapped in a hotel room and you've got a stomach virus and happens to be on, watch some of it and then go to Law and Order. But it's an exquisitely bad movie.
It was almost like they couldn't find a problem, and they all sort of sat around in a room, and Sharon Stone was like, I can't find a good face cream. And that became
Which feels like such a great metaphor for how I do my writing in general. Just I can't think of a plot. I can't. My local deli is closed.
I think what I'm always trying, my goal, and never whole world is going to end, and Gozer's doing stuff, and then they're just saying funny, dumb things at the same time. That's like the ultimate goal, and no, we're getting anywhere near it, but that would be it. If I can, like, that's what I would.
So I'm getting from you guys, it sounds like it's a sandwich. You've got, the bread is this big, huge stuff, and the meat inside is the humanity.
Right. And then, like, on the other end of things, like, if you want to have, like, legitimately big problems, a thing most of us tend to write for younger readers. A thing I like to do in my books is, in state comics especially, there's this tendency to think that the winner and the hero is the one who just figures out how to punch the other person harder. And so I like to have a trick in fantasy, especially where you give them an actual big obstacle that there's just no way they're going to be able to punch, like they're too small. Then it leads, I think, to having to create more creative solutions to problems, rather than just like, I have a bigger stick, you have to resort to diplomacy or trickery or half a dozen other things.
Well, I want to springboard off of that, because I think there is something interesting about what I'd like to know from you guys. Do you calibrate these things specifically because your audience is a younger reader? How do you address that? Is think about, chili and things that would make kids, chuckle? Do you not see a distinction between things that adults would be concerned about and kids would be concerned about?
I try to do all ages. That's how I kind of think about it. I wish we kind of like grabbed on that a little more. That we're trying to do things for everybody. That said, there's things you skew a little bit like, yeah, it's a cheap joke that kids like, but I know if I do a good burp joke in there, my dad's 75, and he's gonna love it. Every time, it just cracks him up every time. Like my dad's reading like the first draft when I know the first laugh when I get from him, like, yeah, I just got to that burp joke, it's smelling. But I think the only thing that I just like modulate maybe is maybe, I avoid swear words and, big SAT words. Aside from that, I'm pretty much just trying to tell a story that I know as an adult, as a fan, as a parent, if my kid handed me the books, like, oh God, we gotta go through this crap again. Okay, here we go. I think we're all trying to tell stories that you think about everybody. With kids in mind, I am kids, but that anybody could enjoy if they get there.
I think for my material, it came directly from the fact that I grew up reading Grimm's fairy tales and was so in love with how scary they were, either for a kid or an adult. They have a way of being like a survival guide to life for every age. And Disney came around and sort of transformed them into this idea that good always wins no matter what, and sort of sanitized the stories. And I felt like if kids, hundreds of years ago could grow up with those rich stories that didn't promise good would always be evil, and there was more of a balance between them, if I could somehow bring that back to fairy tales, bring back the idea that you aren't guaranteed a happy ending if you're a good person, if you always do the right thing. You aren't guaranteed that at all. It all comes down to whether you're the smartest character, in that particular story and whether you find your way out. So that's where Spoken Book came from, was this idea of really a story for all ages that would balance the hero and the villain, and you could root for either side. And if you were the type of kid like I was growing up, who wanted the villain to win and hated the heroes in every Disney movie, then this would be a series where you could root for the bad guy and they would actually have a chance to win.
You guys, most if not all of you, write series books, and I wondered if it's difficult or if there are more different challenges to sustaining stakes over the span of a series versus just one standalone story. Do you find any particular challenges with that?
Yes. Big time. I definitely break myself into corners before.
Any particular examples?
If they're really obvious, I don't want to, I'm too embarrassed.
Is chili involved?
Just really sort of finish the book and I feel come with that book and it's time for the next one. I'm like, oh wait, that's. But yeah, keeping it. I think I always had not always, but I started as the series went on to get sort of end game in mind. It'd be really hard to write, I think, a series that just kept going and keep the stakes going. So it's kind of like when that thing always feels like getting bigger and rolling and growing and growing and growing. And I also really like to write books that feel a little bit like watching a movie. And I always kind of like the first half of the movie better. stuff. I feel like beginning of Sandlot, people were like, I don't know, so the first half is always the most fun. Like, teams get together and it's like stuff isn't that bad yet. And so I try to push that in every single book to like push the halfway point as much as the very end. So that you can have all the fun and it gets serious. I try to do the same thing with the whole course of the series. And I know how to do it.
Have any of you been so deep in your series that you were told by the copy editor that one of the characters you're writing about died in the book before? That sounds like once you've written enough.
Wait, is this like an actual
It's
story?
an actual This character, no, comment, this character is dead.
Did you get a note like, I was like, did we miss the part when they came back to life? And said, yes, you did.
Yeah, my favorite are like the copy editors who will leave the nice notes where they assume that they like missed the thing. Just like kindly.
I like that. I thought that's so.
I get the nicest
so much.
copy.
Thank God for copy editors. I'll just remind you guys to speak into your mics.
Oh, really?
40 minutes.
Right.
Posterity.
I don't have trouble with serialized storytelling because I spent 12 years writing superhero comics, and that's my 10,000 hours of storytelling. It was a fun quote from Paul Evans, you can't call him fun, who used to be the publisher at DC Comics, that all of superhero comics is writing the middle. Because you're only giving superhero, and they're only going to be able to do so much. You know, Batman's always going to be 29 years old. He's never going to get married. He's never going to die. He's going to fight crime in Gotham. Good luck. That should be some real estate. Write that in there. And a lot of it, I'll let you in on a secret, is about kicking the can down the road. You've got to figure out how to get 12 issues out of a character who has been around for 85 years. So once I start doing Hilo, which is my own series, and I get to do whatever I want, it's like, now I'm swimming without weights on my feet. I can just do things. You know, things can change, and I'm not right in the middle anymore. I can, have them expand and go.
You can make choices with how to reset.
Yeah, I'm not going to get a note saying you can't use Nightwing in the next issue because he's doing crossover in Green Arrow. So your next 4 issues are in the toilet. I don't get those notes anymore. It's great. It's a lot more fun. It's like, great, more giant robots and things blowing up. Hilo, let's do it.
Do you feel more pressure or less pressure?
Mostly less. I'm not saying like it's a breeze and every day is like when I talk to kids at schools, I always talk about first draft versus second draft and their sloppy copy versus when you fix it. And I round out all of the writers who might come to visit the school. I tell children, if you have writers who come here and talk to you about that they love writing and they love looking at the blank page and just filling it up, they're lying to you. They're just lying to you. Writers hate writing. They like editing their stuff. That's like, you get the first draft done, you go back and fix stuff, like, that's like the fun, giving birth to the story. So that stuff, I'm just like everybody else. What is the story? How am I going to get here? How's it going to make it work? But doing serialized, it just, again, it's not just me. If you do it long enough, like a friend of mine, Ed Brubaker, now is the writer-producer on Westworld. And his superpower in the room is that if they get stuck on plot, Ed can just like pull it apart and say, well, no, we have her and she'll go there and then we'll do this, we'll go there, and then you go there. It's like looking at the Matrix. You can just see it after a while, after being told you can't use Nightwing anymore. You just have to figure out how pieces sort of fit. And apparently burp jokes. That's how I do it. That's just me.
So I had a realization, kind of only this past year, after spending time with my own characters for a longer period of time. I've read several books with characters. And the Zeta the Space Girl series, at the end of the Mighty Jack books, those two universes kind of cross, and I ended up doing a crossover book with them. Except Zeta is older now. And because I decided at the end of the third Zeta book, I decided that as long as I'm away, she's going to be growing up.
Why did you do that to yourself? Did you want to make her older? I have to ask.
I did. It was interesting to me, I think.
Okay.
And what was interesting, the sort of revelation I had was that, like, when you're really invested in your own characters, and they can get over a lot of personal stuff. They can say, like Zeta's deal, especially in the first book, is impulse control problems. Like, they find a red button, she and her friend Joseph. Zeta wants to push the button. Joseph is a cautious kid and says, no, we should tell somebody about this. And the whole adventure starts when she just forces that issue. She sits on her friend, she pushes the button anyway, portal opens up, her friend gets taken to an alien planet, and she has to, she has to go on this quest to find him. She freaks out, but then she decides, I have to push the button again, and she pushes it, and she goes after him. And, she learns to modulate that sort of impulse control problem, that act first, think later tendency. And then I came back to her when she was older, and it's like, with everybody else, we know we have certain tendencies in us, and those don't ever change. If you're an introvert, it tends to be you're gonna have that as part of yourself your whole life, and it's how you react to it. And so it became a whole new set of interesting problems with her being older, but still being the same person. And now, how do you react to those tendencies that can be negative in your personality at a different stage of your life, at a different, time of development? And so, so it's interesting to think about, there are always new problems, especially if the character is still, psychologically made up in the same way, and they're just reacting to themselves in a new and maybe different way. It doesn't mean they're over it, right? Anyway, it was interesting, and I hope that works with all the other characters too. But it definitely worked with Zeta, and I've been looking at my other characters and being like, Joseph's always going to be cautious. As he gets older, how is he going to react to this? How is he going to decide what's overly cautious and when to actually take the lead?
Well, speaking about that, with this idea of you saying mistakes come from people loving your character, locating the heart, I wondered what are surefire ways to make your reader connect with your protagonist? Do you have go-to things that you do to locate that heart?
I think just trying to write about them honestly. I think, especially when you write things like science fiction and fantasy, you can make up a bunch of basically whatever you want about the world. Right. But I think it's important to have sort of the emotional core of it be things you really can relate to, or that your readers can relate to. So like in Estranged, as the title might imply, there's a lot of focus on feelings of isolation and having to hide things from other people. And I think that's a pretty universal emotion, and I think if you just sort of tap into things like that, it's not that difficult to write a character that people will relate to. It's just as long as you are being emotionally honest about the things they're dealing with.
I think part of it is also you have to have your characters grow, especially in the series, because you really are asking people to commit to these characters for a long period of time. And so after they learn, say I have a girl who wants to be a princess in the first book, so wants to be a classic Disney princess and learns quite quickly that's going to lead her basically to hell. And so once she learns that, you have to give her a new challenge that meets her at her new emotional maturity level. You don't want to have your character slip backwards. And I think that's the biggest thing that happens in the series, and also in comics, I'm sure, where the character does the same thing again and again and again. And you'll read it because you enjoy the plot, but you're not actually seeing them scale the mountain. Because in real life, every time we're in a relationship and it breaks up, we learn something like we're never going to date somebody like that again, right? The next person we date are going to be the one, right? Then you meet the next person and you don't realize that they're also a bogey in disguise. It takes a little bit to figure it out, right? But now you have bogey 1 and bogey 2 that's then going to inform bogey 3. So you keep going and sort of learning as you go. And your characters have to do the same, because I think that's what pulls the reader deeper and deeper and deeper. They're seeing the growth.
I think I was in a talk recently where we were talking about plot structure and pushing back and forth about a lot of rebellion type of stuff. And somebody asked well, do you have any rules? And your question, I didn't actually know how to answer at the time, but I think the only rule is make people care about the story. And there are all these kind of answers that kind of sound pat, like show don't tell, but you can't unpack that and ask how do you what is your way of show don't tell? And one of my things is just since I write and also draw the books, I lean real hard on gesture and body language. And if you can see the struggle going on in somebody, what they're going to do next, or how crushing something was, and which leads them with all these choices, terrible this is. Now they have this awful thing has gone wrong. If you can see it on their face, if you can see them deflate, stuff like that, that's the kind of thing that brings a reader like right there with you. So I work on that a lot, gesturally, and I just want to say one more thing on Spider-Man. I'm not talking about Spider-Man. But no, in Spider-Man Homecoming, I thought that moment when he was like trapped under the rubble, and he's just a kid and he starts crying, like, that was great.
Yeah, it's a good character.
Like, there's always, these movies always have this like up and down quality level throughout even the movie, but that moment was like, that was gold because you really could be there and you know what it feels like to be trapped in something, even if it was like an older sibling like trapping with the blankets or something.
Right,
You
so
know,
it's like frustrated,
yeah,
scared.
that frustrated crying, he nailed it in that scene. It was just like, that's that. And if you can capture that in whether it's prose or comics, gestural, or like using gesture and facial expressions in comics, if you can catch that, that's one of the things. I don't know, for me it's a trick, but for other people care.
Yeah, it's amazing like how much people are willing to buy into your world if they think that the characters react in an emotionally recognizable way.
Yeah.
You can just do whatever else you want. You know, like,
Yeah, I think it's, well, you always hear these expression that, like, you know, that's earned. Like, yeah, that's a moment that's earned for that character, opposed to one that feels cheap. There's a great expression that you heard about, and they use it mostly in movie making, saving the cat. That you have a protagonist, and sometime in the first act, usually literally within the first moments of the movie, you might have a character who either literally or proverbially saves a cat, and that tells you like, oh, they're so nice, I like them so much, they saved that cat. And you're right on their side. Now, it might be just doing something, you know, just a little bit kind, like they've got like a spouse or a partner, and they, you know, went out of their way, like, hey, I knew you were gonna be hungry, so I brought you food, and here's a bottle of water, and this is the moisturizer, you left it at home, and like, oh, he's a good guy, I like that, you know, and you just like them. And it's kind of cheap, and they do it in movies because they don't have a lot of time. We have always a little more time to earn it. And to sort of create, and in cartoons, as Ben was saying, in cartoons we get to, I won't even call it cheap, but we get to do a lot. Like if someone can say something, our characters can silently react to them. And it tells the reader like, yeah, that guy thinks that guy's a jerk. I think he's a jerk too. I like that other guy who thinks he's a jerk. Just by him going like, you know, that. And that sometimes is enough, you know, and with that, if you hear that thing, they're emotionally invested in your character. That just means that they like them, you know, they like your characters, and you can do that in any way. Usually it's better to do it early on than when they make mistakes later, you're disappointed with them. Hating a character and being disappointed are two different things, big things.
well, I think another good thing is a lot of us like to sort of write morally complicated characters or characters who are in morally complicated situations. And what's nice about writing the emotions of a character is you don't necessarily have to agree with them in order to like them. You can have a fully likable character that you objectively can tell, like, you just made the wrong choice in this circumstance.
Right.
And I think that goes back to what you were saying, where it gets them more invested in the emotional journey and like the mountain they eventually have to go up to get past this.
Well, I was also going to say, like, with prose especially, you can really play with some of these conventions. Like on page 3 of the first book of School of Good and Evil, I had the main character save a cat, purely because saving the cat is a good deed, and she's been told to do good deeds. And you start to realize that she's collecting these good things that you're used to seeing in heroes, but she's actually the worst person in the history of the world. So all these things that you're used to seeing from heroes become, you know, the engine to see this Disney-esque character who knows what she's doing. And so I think we can play with that stuff in a way that, you know, short form screen content tends to stick to convention because it works and it's expensive and it's just easier to go with what works, whereas we can play, which is why all the best movie and TV comes from both.
I think there's, thinking about prose versus illustration, as someone I write it, I don't draw it, but I
like
I write it, but I don't draw it, and so, but I write what has to be drawn, like, you know, this happens, and there's so many times where I will write something and pull it and delete it, take out draw instead, and it's so much more powerful than drawn. Like, the image is always so much better than whatever something I was going to write. Like, it always works so much better when you just see the character sitting alone, like on the bench or something, as opposed to like describing. It always is better for me. basis, like, probably right, but it just always feels better, you know,
Yeah, where I've done scenes and then drawn them, and they have a lot of dialogue, and then redrawn them, the more I take away the dialogue, like, the better it gets.
yeah, just
And it's still written, like, you're right, it's nothing, right? But the less the characters are saying it, and the more they're, like, you can see it.
just like one image with 1,000 words.
Oh, there you go.
So we've talked about world building, we've talked about character building, let's talk about plot, Stephen King's favorite thing.
Yeah, suckers.
There's another non-scientific poll. There's two schools, it seems. There's plotters who plan out everything, and there's pantsers who fly by the seat of their pants and discover as they go along. Plotters?
Plot, the whole thing.
Whole thing,
Watch
and
Trump.
pantsers.
All I care about the whole thing.
You guys are pantsers.
Yeah.
No, I'm like, it's a little column A, a little column B. It's you know, I know my ending. I'll say that, and that's the advice I give to anybody. I was about to say, it's the advice I give to children. I give it to grown-ups too. Everybody's got the big idea, and everybody's got the big idea, you know. And when I'm talking to children, I'll say, so you got this crazy idea for a story, you love it. It's like a French bulldog that speaks Spanish and his best friend who's a flower, and they go back in time, right? Okay, and then they go back in time, and they find dinosaurs, and it's such a great story, and then nothing. And you get stuck, and like, we do that too. If you know where you're going, if you know the ending, then the middle becomes sort of the seat of the pants stuff. But at least gives you this trajectory. And you know, the ending might change. But if it gives you this direction of where you're going to end up, you know, an ending that I always say, if you really nail an ending you love, everything else will just kind of get there. You know, there's meandering, but you kind of know where it ends.
Does anybody start without knowing their ending?
The general idea, sometimes it changes. It can change, but I have to know. I like to have the beats at the big moments, like whatever, if it's 50 of them. Clever many, I like to know before I write anything.
Right, it seems impossible to send an arrow flying and hope to hit a target when you haven't actually put a target up, right?
I think people do it, but like not when it's a series of manuscript deadlines. like the first books I wrote, then I would just sort of sit down and like type, it's gonna be magic. And now it's like, no, like I got note cards, they say this happened, this happened, this happened.
Well, if you have a destination in mind, I think it frees you to be surprised by the twists and turns until you get in there.
Right.
Because you can take those twists and turns confidently, you know, because you know the general direction. So that's interesting. And I'm going to come out as somebody who I am, I say a believer, but I do value the very like classical structure. And I tend to check I don't take it as rule, but I check my stories against it. The 3-4 act structure. And it's divided into 4 parts, and you know, at X point, you have to have the call to adventure, the refusal to call, the acceptance of it.
St. Joseph Campbell.
It is, and it goes into like a lot of
Their journey still works. It still works.
But well, I think. Because this goes back to that talk I think I briefly mentioned where I was talking and I hadn't cleared my own ideas about it, but because that stuff comes with a lot of cultural baggage. But I think at its essence, it's more like a rhythm, a mathematical rhythm that's going to exist, like outside of it, right? And it's not a rule, like. There are different rhythms to poetry. You can pick and choose, but it's one that works and is worth learning and can be applicable to things that I don't want to talk about too much at the same time, but I think it can be applicable to so many more things than it could be at first glance, right? It doesn't have to be the great white male hero who gets called to the adventure and I love the Muppets. Kermit is happy in the swamp. He's playing his banjo. His call to adventure comes. Like the guy comes growing up and he's like, you could be in Hollywood, this will be great. And Kermit's like, no, I'm happy here in the swamp. And then the guy's like, you can make millions of people happy. And then Kermit's like, millions of people happy. And that's what gets it. Yeah, right. And that's what, but that's I think what gets it, right? And like that's where he gets it. And then I think it applies to wherever wild things are. I think it can. it can apply to so many different things that I think it's not worth throwing out, right? And so I do tend to check my, I do tend to like check against that structure a lot of times.
I would be completely lost to see that.
Yeah.
I know that Megan's talking to somewhere in our, but I completely would.
Is anybody else on the panel just Camelot, or are there other people that you follow? Okay, sorry, I don't need to label you. But are there other methods or other theories that you guys follow or always check against as you're working?
Well, I think it's really interesting to write a series because as you go on in the series, you feel a little less pressure because you've already built, your readership, you've built all the sort of structure, and you can really start to pay attention to your own inner process of writing. And one of the things I've started to realize is that every day when I wake up, like, you feel the elves inside you that write the story pulling you forward if you're going in the right direction. So you literally can feel it's like driving on a road where you can only see a little bit in front of you with the headlights. Whatever you can see that day, you get pulled forward. If you're going in the wrong direction, you can literally feel your body start to tread water, and you're just sort of staying in place. So I think so much about writing, especially when you're deep in a series with so much more building that your consciousness can't possibly be responsible for everything. Your conscious mind can't keep track of everything, nor can you impose a structure on it because it's just too big. You have to really start to pay attention to your internal metronome of, is it pulling you forward? Because then you know you're going in the right direction. Otherwise, you really have to sit back, and it's what people call writer's block, but it's actually, you went in the wrong direction, right? And then you have to figure out, and usually what I do is I just kill someone.
and then forget you killed them.
The internal metronome, yes. Internal metronome will then be like, no, don't do that, do this instead. And you're like, oh, there you are. And you follow the headlines.
It's sort of right in your plot.
The thing about getting up, that's why the structure for me is so important. Like, if I sat down at my desk to write and I didn't know what the next couple of scenes were, or if I felt like I was getting stuck and I didn't know that I could bounce around to one that happens 100 pages later, because I know that's not the one to write, it would just be brutal for me. But I think that's just my head.
Everything's about minimizing anxiety. It's whatever makes you less anxious.
Yeah, drinking more and writing.
Roald Dahl always said to, not like I met him, I read it, like I said, my buddy Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl actually says you always leave when you're, when the seat is hot. So if you have a great idea and you're really, really excited about it, and you're kind of at the end of the day, stop there. Stop there because they'll drag you back to the desk the next day and you'll be ready to go, opposed to, let me just get this good idea out of my system, and then you're like left with nothing.
Also stop in the middle of a sentence. Like the thing I'm working on now is a prose novel. Mm-hmm. I started doing that because you clear outside, at least my way to do it is to clear aside time where I'm supposed to for this next 2 hours or hour and a half or whatever of the day to be typing this thing.
Right.
And you have to clear the first 30 minutes of it just sitting there. This is not the day for this. It was a mistake. I've got to check my email. This person's they're always chores to do, whatever it is. And it has worked where I stop in the middle of a sentence and I know where that sentence is going, and I know that the end of the paragraph has to be written too.
Right.
But I left off there, and then you actually have a jumping in point.
Oh my God, every obsessive compulsive person in the room just had a meltdown.
It's hard not to just feeling it, right? But it is a sentence. And I have to, in full honesty, this is something I've done 3 times, where I've been managed to stop at the end of a sentence, but it worked. And anyway, so yeah, and it's even then I'm still working from something I've outlined, right? So I have a general, I still have that target that I'm aiming for, but even when you have a target you're aiming for, I think it is normal to have to stare at that blank page.
I'm going to jump on this as a segue. Part of the name of the talk today talks about the personal growth is exponential when you step outside your comfort zone. So I wanted to talk about your comfort zones and your process and your working methods. These are fascinating ideas of ending in the middle of a sentence and leaving while the seat is hot. And I wondered, when do you guys write? Where do you write? What's essential for your process? Do you have routines? Do Do you wake up at 7 and work for 2 hours and don't look at email? What tricks can you impart? What tips?
Go ahead, sir.
It took me a long time to figure out how it worked, how I work, and it took me a lot of like coming to terms with like, it sounds crazy. Like I would read books about like how writers work, and they always sound so. A lot of times they sound very disciplined, and I was like, what the hell's wrong with me? Because like that's not the way I am, and my character's like, what the hell's wrong with you? And but like so I figured out that for me it's like I have to not be at my house. I have to be out somewhere, so to go like a coffee shop or a bar or a restaurant, and I have with me, so I have like a box that I use for my phone, this thing.
You lock up the phone?
You like a lockbox? Yeah, I carry it everywhere, and like I get weird looks on planes, like when I use it as like a bomb, but like I lock my phone in this, and I set it for like 3 hours, and like 'cause otherwise I'll get to any sort of like
What is that called?
it's called kitchen safe box. It's for like people like readers and stuff, which is also a thing that I have to do. But like it's like I get to like I'll get to like any sort of tough point in a sentence or a moment, and I'll be like, I don't know, I'm gonna go on Instagram, and so I need to lock that. I know that I can't escape the restaurants. I can't Uber if I want to access to my phone, so I have to stay there and do it. I have apps on my computer that shut down everything except for Microsoft Word or whatever it is I'm using to find the draft.
Is that the Freedom app?
Focus is like, there's one called Focus.
Focus,
Because Freedom I realized you could like break it and just change the date in your calendar. So like I would hack myself to death. Like literally hack myself to death.
It's like you can only write if you're in prison.
Yeah, I know. You know what it's like.
I have fantasized about going to jail.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, even with the best, like, if they give you, like, paper, and, I would, it'd be great.
Yeah, I think a lot of this would be great. Like, if I wasn't a parent, if I wasn't married, I get so much more done. Like, yeah, you don't have a life, but yeah, we forget that part of it. But I think every one of us, and we're going through the decks, battling procrastination, which was easier like 10, 15 years ago because we didn't have all the stuff. Like social media wasn't a thing, and wasting your time doing things wasn't so ridiculously easy. So battling procrastination, and also I don't like coming like to the blank page. I like having thought about it a lot before I get there. And that's not saying waiting for the muse to hit. I usually mean that by the time I'm writing the next thing, I've thought about it. I'm lucky, and Ben probably test this as well. Like if I'm drawing a book, it is a creative process unto itself, but it also frees up time that I'm thinking about the next story that comes after this.
Oh, yeah, drawing is different. Like,
Yeah.
drawing,
It's all podcasts. And
drawing is podcast.
Well, watch TV, right? Watch movies, right?
Yeah, well, I'll say if you thumbnail the book and you're transferring your thumbnails into finished art, at that stage of life, I just wake up, I draw all day, and then I go to bed and I draw however many pages it is. But like just writing is different.
No, writing is different.
And I think there is, I think one of the tricks is to just be honest with yourself about what part of the day makes it easier for you to get to the good stuff. Like I just do business in the morning or watch dumb YouTube videos in the morning because I'm not gonna get, like I know that it's gonna be 3 o'clock to whenever I have to go to bed, which is where the good stuff is, right? And that's just the way it is, that's the way I'm wired. And everybody's gonna be different in that regard. I envy the people who can wake up real early and get right into the creative stuff, but I can't.
Yeah, I have to use what I've been calling like the diving board method. Like when I was really little and I was learning how to swim, I was really scared of a diving board. I developed the theory that if I would just sort of, the second I was told I had to do it, if I just ran and jumped off the end, then I would have plenty of time for second thoughts as I flew through the air and plummeted towards the water.
You really do this, kid?
Yeah, I really did.
That's awesome.
And so I felt the same theory with work, where if I think about getting to work and what I have to do for the workday, I psych myself out and end up sort of neurotically checking my Goodreads page on loop.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
That's its own prison.
It's terrible. And so the working theory is that if I just, the second I have time available where I'm not doing email correspondence or running errands or whatever, if I just immediately sit down at my desk and pick up my pen and start drawing or writing, then I can sort of complain internally about like, I don't know how to do this because I'm already doing it. And it's easier to maintain the momentum once you have it going.
The other thing I would say is that for a lot of what I think we do, we want to turn off our conscious mind. And so a lot of what we're talking about is trying to get to a place where the unconscious can take over, when the conscious mind has relaxed enough. For me, the only way I can do that is if I have exercise to the point of exhaustion and wanting to go to sleep. So that's the first thing I do in the morning. And so if you follow me on Instagram, it's just me exercising all the time. So I'm trying to get to the place where I can learn. So I think that's a lot of it. It's getting your head out of the way, whatever that means.
That is exactly true, I think. I think the hardest psychological trick to writing is to get to that place where you feel like you're writing a story, but you're actually writing about your own issues, or whatever. Issues is even too strong a term. You're writing about what's going on in your life, or has gone on in your life. You're writing something really personal, but you don't consciously know that you're writing that. You think you're just writing a story, and that gets really interesting. And like somebody did a review of Mighty Jack, and you're like, I was like, whoa, that's what that was about. And it was like, it was
illuminating.
I tell you, because I grew up with sisters, and anyway, it was very much about my life in a way that I hadn't realized.
Nice. Our readers can tell us so much. And speaking of, we're about to break into Q&A. So if anybody are there questions? Has anybody prepped stuff? Great. I think there's a microphone here, if you don't mind meeting this gentleman here to speak into the mic so that you can be recorded along with everybody else. And we have about a little under 15 minutes for that. And I also wanted to ask the panelists to think about, when we finish with the Q&A, I would love to let the audience know a writer whose work we may not be reading that you think we should be reading. So if you have anybody you really have been loving, or somebody who's been really influential to you, please share it with us. If you don't worry about it. But think about it while we go to the first question. Go ahead.
Okay, so you're saying that readers invest in the emotions of the journey. How does it connect to this lighter character, morally complicated, and characters react emotionally?
Say the second part again?
Morally complicated part.
Well, I think it helps. I mean, so it's good if you can get them on board with liking the character in the first place, right? And if they're morally complicated, it gives them a place to go to emotionally. You actually have an arc, or like they're saying, like a mountain they have to come of emotion. And so they can make wrong decisions, especially early on. And if you like them, and you get the audience to like them even with their problems, then they will root for them all the more to overcome those problems. And probably develop new problems, which is great for when you're writing a series.
So actions of the character constitutes their popularity, right?
I don't know that's necessarily
I don't
true.
know if it's that simple. I think it comes down to just making sure that the character is understood. That everything they're doing is an honest reaction of that character.
Yeah, you can make the actual villain of the book or the series be a likable character and be understandable.
It's better that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, like Thanos. We don't agree with him, but we understand. Like, he's not, I mean, he might be insane, but he has he has a goal. It's like, oh, I see what you're saying. That's a horrible thing that you want to do, but yeah, it would work. It's a solution. It's not a nice one, but it works. And for that reason, he becomes interesting. I mean, just like a protagonist. I mean, the fact it's okay for your protagonists to be good people who will occasionally make mistakes along the way, or the other protagonists that they're running along with to disagree with them. It's because that's what we do, or rather, we should. Only the people that you know and love the best understand who you are and will tell you and let you know, like, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're not supposed to be doing it like that. And when you get to that point, it's actually, I think it's the most fun of storytelling when we have characters that we love and we have them make mistakes. We know that they're going to get out of it, but I mean, that's all stories are, like obstacles to overcome. So a character who's likable, it's not just like there's a bad guy they have to fight. They've got their own stuff they have to deal with too, which might get in the way of getting over the obstacle.
Thank you for the question. You're welcome. Next.
Hi. As you talk about needing to get your minds out of the way when you're creating, do all of you write on a computer, or do any of you find you do it better longhand?
I start with longhand personally. I do all my notes in an actual notebook. And then eventually, like, when I flesh things out and develop more specific points, I'll do on word processing.
I write.
I was just going to ask a question. We can go right on down.
I do everything in text edit on a computer with no page numbers, and I do it in big font that's multicolored, because then it feels like it's not a book. You can't feel like work. So, and then it only goes into Microsoft Word when everything is done.
I do a little bit of everything.
I do the outlining on note cards on a corkboard, along with a note, like a combination of computer and hand. And then when I'm writing, I write, I have Microsoft Word open, and I also have that Notes app open, and I write just sort of like the scene, like the beats of the scene, and then I move it over. But if I get really stuck, then I write by hand. It just sort of seems to free up the different part of my head.
Yeah. And I start all my projects actually in a sketchbook, even if they're written projects.
Same.
Yeah, and does it look like crazy person stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I have my small pocket notebook with me.
Right.
Like, if anyone wants to see it during the assignment,
And it's also like in
it's
columns,
crazy.
and since I'm left-handed, it's in columns that go from right to left, so the story actually is so crazy. And then, I like the feeling of typing though, so when I get to the part where I'm transcribing those notes to the thing, it's like,
It makes me feel very awkward.
yeah, you're like, just swim right there. That's great.
Great question. Thank you.
Patches start to grow on your
Hi guys, I'm an organizer of a local writing group back in Staten Island, and just talking to all of the writers that I work with, particularly new writers, they seem to have this idea that they are going to do everything alone and then just publish. So I was just wondering, like, what is your experience with who's reading your stuff between you creating alone and then your readers getting it? Are you part of critique groups, or do you have that one person, Judd, you spoke about your dad reading your first drafts? Is it only friends and family, or are you looking to other professionals for advice and tips like that while going through the process?
For me, it's kind of all the above. I mean, I'm writing, Hilo's a middle grade series, and my children are 13 and 9, so they're in my demographic. So that's easy. And, and we have a relationship where they'll tell me if they think it stinks. So my own children read Hilo before anyone else does, and including my wife. And I do have friends who, I can say, my best friend is Brad Meltzer, who's also a writer in our comic books, and Brad and I have been friends for 25 years. So Brad and his youngest, who is 8, also read it too. And for me, it's that gut check of just like, okay, I did this, I think it works, I think I'm in the place I need to be, read it. And now and again, someone will blow a hole in it somehow. It's like, this part doesn't make any sense. Like, oh my God, it's totally right, that doesn't make any sense. That's what you want. You want someone to hand it back to you like, this is terrible. And I love you, but this is terrible. And then you go and fix it. So those are my readers. And I think you shouldn't do it in the vacuum. If you want to be a professional, I think you need to be able to take criticism in many forms, but also filter it. Yeah, that's a good point, but you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like, sometimes you have to know.
The other issues, especially as we get deep in the series, I'm about to start the 6th book, and there's 180 characters, there's like 72 plot lines going, and it's like running a fantasy corporation. And if you really believe that you are the be all and all, and you can and everything's perfect in your brain, then you're delusional.
Right.
So usually, because the fan base is global at this point, and we have pretty good data on who the fans are, we actually reach out to the 3 or 4 top fans, and we will actually pay a couple of them to be beta readers on the later books to make sure that we catch everything. Because they read them, they've read every book more times than I ever will, right? They read every one 10, 11 times, so they know everything. They're able to be like, your timeline's wrong, that character's eyes wrong, that character's dead. You know what I mean? They catch it. So
That's awesome.
That's the
That's
luxury of being late in a very large series.
Do you use the same readers every time? You're trying to change it up. It's like winning the lottery. So I'm sure, hey, hardcore fan, you want to read the next book and read notes? I mean, I'm sure they they follow.
Usually, though, once you find one, you trust that they're not gonna spoil it somehow.
Right, okay.
You know? So that's the other thing. You don't want them to spoil it.
They become part of the inner circle.
Fantastic. Maybe we can squeeze in one more before we hear their recommendations. I'm sorry if we don't get to everybody.
Yeah, we're happy to answer questions like the signing and stuff, so you didn't get a chance.
Right.
Thanks, so.
The signing right outside, right after this.
I
Go
just
ahead.
wondered if anyone could tell an anecdote or experience where what ended up in the published page is done, it's printed, you look back and remark, wow, this is really pretty different than what I thought about early in the phases. Specific anecdotes, specific story parts, small or big, and I'd love to hear from anyone, but then I'm most familiar with everything you read. My son and I have read everything multiple times, so if you have any specifics from your stories, I'm out, I'd love to hear it. Thanks.
Wow, yeah, most of the books have ended up being really different, even than what I pitched, or even, what I felt like they signed up for. Most of them. Zeta was just completely different than what I originally pitched. But Mighty Jack was an interesting one because I pitched it, the first two I pitched as, I didn't even think it was a series, but I pitched it as a single book that I started working on 10 years before, and actually pitched it once before, and I was like, I don't know, and it needed that time to develop. But when I sent the outline to my editor, she was like, this seems like a lot of stuff for one book. It's fine. And then like a month later, I was like, it's not fine. You were right, there's too much. And so I ended up, the whole thing being like looking back, I think the whole thing gained a lot from being split, because what I did was if you look at it as a standard Hollywood movie, I took that last battle and shaved it off. And then the first book, the more interesting bits, like the family relationships and stuff, in the world kind of grew. And then I got to leave that book at a sort of a cliffhanging point. And the second book, I only had like the back third worth of material. And that didn't include, if you read, it didn't include Lily's story with the goblins or anything like that. And that just grew in because there was space for it. And the whole thing became more what it wanted to be because of that. So yeah, there is at the beginning point of the project, you just have this initial seed, and I'm kind of becoming a confident pitcher of stories, but not that I'm good at it, but I feel a little confident about it. But I'm also I go in knowing I'm just getting you to sign this up. We both know I don't know. Or at least editorial, or with the editors, it's you both know I have no idea if this is what it's actually going to be. So anyway, yeah.
All right, we have 1 minute to go. I'd love to hear from you guys if you have any authors that you think we should be looking at that we may not be looking at.
Oh, I have an old book that I always recommend. That's just my go-to, and it's Ken Grimwood's Replay. If you haven't read this book, it's great, right? It's great. It's the elevator pitch is a guy's 55 years old, he drops dead, and he wakes up and he's 21. He's gone back in time, he's in his body, he's 21 years old and remembers everything that happened since he was 55. And then he starts, he knows everything that's going to happen, including sports events and whatnot, and hey, I'm going to live this great life. And, makes a ton of money and this and that, and then 55 years old comes around, he drops dead again. He's 21 again. He keeps living the same 30-some-odd years of his life over and over and over again. And this book came out 30 years ago. Ken Grimwood didn't do a lot. It's a really interesting book because before anyone was kind of doing this story. And I highly recommend it. It's probably a little bit dated, maybe uncomfortably sexist here and there because he has a Jim Morrison Doors kind of period where a lot of sex and drugs. But Replay, it's really good.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a lesson author. I'm a really big fan, sort of a recent fan of Delia Sherman.
Yeah.
She was a big author of urban fantasy, especially in like the 80s and 90s, and then continued to show up in a lot of great anthologies. And she recently published a book for children called Evil Wizard Smallbone, which I fell absolutely in love with. It's this great little book about a boy who sort of accidentally ends up becoming the employee at the Evil Wizard's bookshop that no one shops at. And I like it because it's the thing we're talking about at the beginning of the panel about having small problems. It's a very domestic book. There's these great things of like these great world-changing, powerful wizards, and he's sort of secretly learning magic. But the book is based on like, if his chore is to muck out the pig pen, what does having magic, like how does that affect you having to do mundane chores? I just like that sort of small, quiet, local thing that makes it exciting.
I've been given a sign that time is up, but does anybody want to quickly say their person?
I would say Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, because I feel like it's a textbook example of a good debut novel.
I don't have.
Okay, I'm going really quickly. The Animal Family by Randall Jarrell. He's an American poet and literary critic. He is with Decorations by Maurice Sendak. It's heartbreakingly beautiful. Hunter lives alone on an island, finds a mermaid, and then they sort of just build a family. And it's crazy, but it's just gorgeous, both lyrically and artistically. And it's little, it's thin. It's something you can find it, read it.
And I'm going to throw out Kelly Link.
I just finished Get a Drum. I bought it for the train and I went through it so quickly that I didn't bring it with me because I was done before I went on this trip. It's good stuff.
Brilliant. I want to thank Comic-Con for having me. I want to thank you guys for being here, for being readers, for buying books, and I want to thank these guys for